Anybody who wants to watch it later can. So what I thought I was going to do this afternoon, y'all, was I was going to go over 2.7. And then once I was done with 2.7, what my plan was would be answer any questions you guys might have. Okay. So first question is it are you guys okay with this with me going over 2.7 first and then answering questions? Are you guys good with that, or do you guys have a okay? Yeah, okay, perfect. So let's do that then, y'all. Let me go ahead and go over 2.7. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. There you go. I think. Let's see. Oh man, where did it go? Yes. I think you guys can still see this. Double check. Yeah. Okay. So let me go over 2.7, and then whatever questions you guys might have after I do this, if you're like, sir, can you go over this problem from 2.5 or this one from 2.8 or whatever happens to be, we'll definitely do that. Okay. So let me go ahead and get started on this. So now, y'all, 2.7 is talks about these things called transformations of graphs. Okay. So, we'll go ahead and do this. So what we're going to do here, y'all, is we're going to talk about shifting the graphs, meaning we're going to be moving the graphs either up or down or left or right. Okay, so the one thing I want to point out is when we have a function like this, y equals f of x, okay, if we're affecting what we're plugging in, meaning if it's an x plus 3 or an x minus 5, but it's inside this part, then that's going to be changing my x values. And if we have something like either a plus 5 or a minus 2 or something like that, but if this is on the outside, then we're changing the y values, okay? So when I look at this right here, if you notice if there's a plus c on the outside, that means we're going up 2 spaces. If there is a minus c on the outside, we're going to go down c spaces. Right now it's really 2, but whatever number it happens to be. And then if you notice these here, these are affecting it inside. That means we're changing my x values. So I'm either going to move to the right or to the left, okay? So let's take a look at the first problem that we have here. And it says, given the graph of y equals f of x, so here's my graph, right? We're going to make a table, y'all, for this part, and we're going to graph it as well. So I want you to notice, we already have a table of values here. And all they really did is said, look, this is the point -1, 2. So when x is -1, y is -2. This is the point 0 and 1. So when x is 0, y is 1. And this is the point 2, -1. So when x is 2, y is -1. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make a table for this part. So I want you to notice something. The plus 2 is on the outside. And when we have something like that over here, and it's a plus 2 on the outside, that means the graph is going to go up. In this case, we're going to go up 2 spaces. So that means we're changing the y values. So my x values, y'all, aren't going to change. So just like our x values here in this box were -1, 0, and 2, they're going to stay -1, 0, and 2. But if we're going up 2 spaces, what that means I'm going to do is with my y values, I'm just going to add 2 to each of those, and that'll move my graph up 2 spaces. So look, let's take a look. -2 plus 2, 0. 1 plus 2, 3. -1 plus 2, 1. And what I'm going to do now, y'all, is I'm going to go ahead and graph that. So the point -1, 0 would be right here. 0, 3 would be right there. 2, 1 would be right here. And if you notice, what we really did is we took this picture and we just moved it up 2 spaces. Everything just got shifted up 2. And since we were going up 2, all we did is we took 2 and we added it to each of my y values. Okay? So look, I'm going to go through like 4 problems like this, y'all, and they're all going to be relatively similar. We're just going to figure out, am I changing the x's, am I changing the y's, okay? So now, look, let me do another problem. So here's my next problem, same function I'm dealing with. What I want you to notice now, look what we're going to graph. We're going to graph y equals f of x minus 1. I want you to notice that that minus 1 is outside those parentheses. So when I come back and I say, okay, what happens when there's a minus 1 outside? When there's a minus 1 outside, we're going to go down. And in this case, we're going to go down 1 spot, okay? So since we're going to go down 1 spot, my x values, again, aren't going to change. Those are going to stay -1, 0, and 2. Since we're going to go down 1 spot, I'm just going to subtract 1 from each of those. So -2 minus 1, -3. 1 minus 1, 0. -1 minus another 1, -2. And then I'm going to go ahead and plot those points. So -1 and -3 is all the way down here. 1 and -1 is right there. And 2 and -2 is right over here. And let me see. I'm sorry, I put the wrong point. It should have been 0, 0, right? Sorry, I looked at the wrong point. So 0, 0 is right here. Okay, so -1, -3, 0, 0, 2, -2. There's my graph. And again, if you notice, all we did is we took this graph and we just pulled it down 1 spot. Okay. So guys, before I continue, so far, is this making sense of what I'm doing? Are we good? Oops. Okay, awesome. Just checking with you guys, okay? So let me go ahead and go on to the next part here. So again, like I said, we're going to do like 4 problems like this. First thing I want y'all to notice about this one, it's y equals f of x minus 2, but that minus 2 is inside. Okay, so this tells me, number 1, y'all, since it's inside, we are going to change our x values, okay? I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and I'm going to say, okay, what happens when we have a minus inside? When we have a minus inside, we're actually going to the right. Okay, so we're going to take our graph and we're going to move it to the right 2 spaces. Okay, so let me scroll back down over here. Let me get back to my problem. Okay, so we know that we're going to go to the right 2 spaces. So we're going to end up moving that way. So I want you to think about this for a second. Look at this point right here. The coordinates of that point are 2, -1. If I were to go to the right 2 spaces, 1, 2, I would now have this point. And the coordinates of this point would be 4, -1. So I want you to think about what we did. This number here didn't change. But because we're moving to the right, what we really did is we added 2 to that number, right? So I know there's a -2 in there, but we're really doing sort of the opposite because we are going to the right. So guys, since I'm changing my x values, my y values aren't going to change, but my x values, we're going to add 2 to each of those. So 2 plus -1 is 1, 2 plus 0 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. And now what I'm going to do here, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and plot these. So look, the point is 1 and -2 right there. 2 and +1 right up here. 4 and -1 right up here. There's my graph again. And again, if you notice from the original graph, all we did is we just went to the right 2 spaces. Okay. So one thing I want y'all to be careful with, if you notice here how it's a -2, but look what we did to our values. We're actually doing the opposite in this case. When it's on the inside of the parentheses, if it's a minus, you're actually going to do a plus. And you're going to see in a little bit, if it's a plus, we're actually going to do a minus, okay? So let's try one more. And same sort of problem here. I'm dealing with the same function. Look what we have. We have y equals f of x plus 1. So guys, I'm going to scroll one more time. And then in a little while, I'm going to pull up like a little formula sheet so I don't have to keep scrolling. But if you look right here, if it's a plus, we're actually going to move to the left, okay? So I'm going to scroll back down one more time. Here we go. Okay, so I know what we're doing here is we're actually going to move our graph to the left one space, okay? So again, what does that mean? It means my y values are going to stay exactly the same. That'll still say a -2, a 1, and a -1. But since I'm going to move to the left, I want you to think about where this point would be. It would now be over here. So instead of at -1, that point now should be at -2. If this point up here is going to move to the left, instead of at 0, it's now going to be at -1. If this point is going to move to the left, instead of it being at 2, now it's going to be at 1. So really what I've done is from my original x values, -1, 0, and 2, I subtracted 1 from each of them. So that gave me a -2, a -1, and a +1. And those are the numbers that I'm now using right there, right? And so again, I'll plot those points one more time. So -2 and -2 is down here. -1 and 1 is up there. And 1 and -1 is right over here. Oops. Fix that. And again, there's my graph. So far, we're still doing okay? Okay, just
Yes.
checking with y'all. Okay, awesome, guys, great. Let me go ahead and move to the next part. Okay. Now, the next part here, y'all, we're going to have these things that we call vertical stretching and shrinking. So vertical means is going to be on the y-axis, okay? Vertical is like up and down sort of action, okay? And so it says right here, and I'm gonna kind of try to make this seem a little bit better. And it says if we're dealing with the point, if the point x and y is on the graph of y equals f of x, then the point x c times y is going to land on this graph, okay? So let me explain what we mean. So when we have a function that looks like this, y equals f of x, the points here are going to be like this, x and y. But if we now have an equation that looks like this, y equals c times f of x, then my points are going to look like this. So all I'm really doing, I want you to notice something here, y'all. My x numbers are the same. The only difference between this y and this y is to get this one, I got to take this number and multiply it by whatever my number c is here, okay? So remember, the x values aren't changing, the y values are. So I'm going to look at my original function that I have here, okay? And look what it's told me to do. We're going to make a table for y equals 2 times f of x. So in this case, my number c is the same thing as the number 2. So since I told y'all before that my x values aren't going to change, I'm going to copy these, and I'm just going to put them down right here. That's -4, that's -2, that's 0, and that's 1. Now, the way I'm going to end up with these numbers here is I'm going to take each of those numbers, and we're going to multiply them each by 2. So -1 times 2 is a -2. -4 times 2 is a -8. 2 times 2 is a 4. And 2 times 2 again is also 4. And so now we made a table that we were asked to find, right? So again, guys, the reason why I did that is because we're multiplying it by the number that we have over there, okay? Now, I'm going to do the same thing for this next one here, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to write down what we're trying to find. We're trying to find y equals, in this case, 1/2 f of x, okay? So I'm going to write this here, y equals 1/2 f of x. Remember, we said the x numbers don't change. I want you to notice in this case, y'all, my c is the number 1/2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to these numbers down here on the y-axis, on the y value, and I'm going to take half of them. So half of -1, and that's just a -1/2. I can't really do much with it. Half of -4, -2. Half of 2 is 1, and half of 2 again is 1. So all I'm doing is I'm taking half, because that's the number that we have in front of each of those numbers. Okay? So again, the point that I'm really trying to make here is, how do I know what I'm going to change? Part of it, y'all, I was doing this in my class last night. Part of it is I actually kind of have to read this piece and then see if I can make sense of it, right? But that's why I kind of wanted to lecture over this tonight, because I felt like this part might be a little bit more troublesome trying to learn it on your own than me kind of at least going through it with you all. Okay, and then like I said, guys, when we're done with this, I can answer any questions. So like last night, what my class did was they wanted to go over like specific problems out of the homework for 2.7, so we did that. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. Now we're talking about horizontal. Okay, so guys, if we're doing this horizontally, that means we are now changing our x values. Okay, I want you to notice what we have. Remember, just like we did before, when we have a function that looks like this, y equals f of x, my points are going to be like this, x and y. But if we now have this, y equals f c of x. So notice where that number is. It's on the inside, and it's right next to the x, and that's why we're changing our x value. The way we're going to write our points now is going to be x divided by c, and then the y numbers aren't going to change. Okay? So, like I said, the y numbers are going to stay the same. So when I'm doing this one here, I'm going to put x and y equals f of 2x. And since the y numbers are the same y numbers there, that's going to be a 3, a -3, a +3, and a -3. But now we're going to figure out, how do I change my x numbers? We're going to take each of these x numbers here, and we're going to divide them by the number in front of my x. So the number in front of our x here, y'all, is the number 2. So look, we're going to go super slow. We're going to take this first number, -2 divided by 2, -1. That's the number that's going to go right there. Okay. Then we're going to take the second number, -1 divided by 2. I can't do anything with it. -1/2. Then we're going to take the third number, 1 divided by 2, 1/2. And then we're going to take the fourth number, 2 divided by 2. That's going to give me 1. And there's my table for y equals f 2x. Okay. So like I said, I know it can get a little overwhelming, especially just like trying to read this and understand what it says. But the point, what I'm really looking at is this piece right here is going to tell me what my new points are going to look like, or how I'm going to be able to come up with my new points. Okay. So before I go on, are we still good before I do anything else? I just want to make sure that I'm making sense as we're going through this, guys, and then we'll kind of keep pushing. But I just want to make sure we're still good at this point. Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Very good. Excellent. Just wanted to double check. So guys, let's take a look at the next problem. And I want you to notice, let me get a pen. I want you to notice what we have here. We have y equals f of 1/2 x. Okay. So just like we did before, remember, this is going to be here. My y equals f of 1/2 x are going to be right there. Remember what we said, the y values didn't change. So that's still going to be a 3, a -3, a 3, and a -3. But remember what we did before? We took our original x values and we divided them by the number c. Well, in this case, y'all, my number c is the number 1/2. So look what we're going to do. We are going to take -2. I'm going to think of that -2 as -2/1. Now remember, I'm dividing it by what number? I'm dividing it by 1/2. So if you remember, the way we divide fractions is we change this to a times, and we take the reciprocal of that fraction. So -2 times 2 is a -4 over 1. That just becomes a -4. Okay? And I'm going to do the same thing for the next one. So let's, oops, whoa. Oh, here we go. I'm going to do the same thing for the next one. So I'm going to take -1. I'm going to take that over 1, divided by 1/2. -1 over 1 times the reciprocal of this one, 2 over 1. That becomes -2 over 1. Well, that's just -2. Okay? And we'll do the same thing for the third one. So we're going to take 1. I'm going to think about it as 1 over 1 divided by 1/2. So that becomes 1 over 1. The reciprocal of this one, 2 over 1. So as I go straight across, that's 2 over 1. That just becomes the number +2. And then the very last one, this one right here. So 2. Let me just do it over here on the side. 2 over 1 divided by 1/2. 2 over 1 times the reciprocal of 1/2, also 2 over 1. That gives me 4 over 1. So then this number, oops, this number here just becomes the number 4. So again, takes a little time to do, but the slower that I move, and if I do each step individually, I'm going to get my problems right. So one thing I always tell my class last night, y'all, is that for these problems, they do take some time to do. You just want to go really, really slow, okay? So let me keep moving along here. All right. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do this one. So now, the next thing we're talking about are these things called reflections across the x-axis and reflections across the y-axis, okay? So, let me grab my pen, and I'm going to look at this piece right here. Okay, so remember, when we have this, y equals f of x, remember what we said our graphs are going to look like? They're going to look like this, right? Our points are going to be x and y. But look at what we have here. Now we have a negative in front. So if I have a negative in front, y'all, and what I mean by in front of the f, then what my points are going to look like now, they're going to look like this, okay? So the easiest way for me to do this problem, I think, is I know we have our points labeled here, but let's make a little chart, like a little table for it, okay? Now we have 3 points. So the first point is when x is -2, y is -1. The second point is when x is -1, y is 2. And the last one is when x is 3, y is 1. So one thing I want to point out, if I look at this piece here, and I look at this piece here, I say, hey, look, the x numbers are the same. So the x numbers are the same. So my x numbers are going to stay -2, -1, and 3. What's different from my y number here to my y number here? Well, we have a minus sign in front of it. So what that means, what we're going to do, y'all, we're going to change the signs of those numbers. So since this one used to be a -1, now it's a +1. If this used to be a +2, now it's a -2. And if this used to be a +1, well, now it's a negative. And now my table is done, okay? Okay, so now let me do the next one here, and it's this piece right here. So I want you to look at this one. Y equals f of -x. So just like we did before, if my points in y equals f of x are x and y, then the way my points are going to look here, they're going to look like this. So one thing I want you to notice, y'all, from this one to this one, the y numbers are the same. Okay, so look, I'm going to go like this. X and y equals f of -x. My y numbers are the same. So I'm not going to change these at all. I'm going to leave that as a -1, a 2, and a 1. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to change the signs of these. So that becomes a +2, a +1, and a -3. And now my table is done. Okay. So let me keep moving along here. And we'll play the same kind of game. So this is just kind of like reviewing, figuring out how do I do each of these. Okay. So what I'm going to do real quick, y'all, is, let me see. Let me pull this back up. I'm going to stop sharing this screen for 1 second. Let me see. There we go. Let me stop sharing this. And let me share my Chrome tab. Here we go. Let's go to content. Do this. Okay, so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Guys, I'm going to scroll down here to my weekly activities folder. And let's see. Let's click on this one right here. So guys, I'll talk a little bit about the test in a minute. But first thing I want to do, right here, y'all, I pulled up, I gave you guys a formula sheet. So if you were to click on this, you'll see the formula sheet is probably not going to come up right now. I don't think it is. I think I'm still sharing the other parts. But let me stop sharing this one and share that one with you guys so you can see what it is I'm doing. Okay, so here we go. And what I'm going to try to do here, y'all, if I can, let's see, here we go. Okay. And I'm going to try to do a little copy and paste business here for us. Let's see. Boom, we copy there. Copy that, that's fine. And then I'm going to come back to my notes. And I'll show my notes with you guys in a second too. Okay, so let me stop sharing this. And let me come back to my notes. There we go. And let's make sure that that pops up. Yes. Okay. So guys, all I did here is I copied that part of the formula sheet over here so I can use it as a reference as I need to. Okay. All right. The reason why I'm doing that is I want you to look at the problem that I have right here. We have y = f of x plus 2. Hey, that looks a lot like this part. So what am I going to do in this case? I'm going to go up 2 spaces, okay? So since I know I'm going to go up 2 spaces, I want you to think about what's going to happen. If the graph is going to move up 2 spaces, that means that this point here, instead of at -2 and 2, should be at -2 and 4. This point here, instead of being at 0 and -2, should be at 0 and 0. And this point here, instead of being at 2 and 2, should be at 2 and 4. And there's my graph. And all I did is I just went up 2 spaces, right? Okay. Now again, guys, if it helps, you can always do this, right? If it helps you, you can always do something like this and say, look, when x is -2, y is 2. When x is 0, y is -2. When x is +2, y is +2. And then what did I do to get these points? I just added 2 to each of those, and that's how I was able to come up with my new point, right? So I'm going to do the same thing here. I want you to look at what we have and what we're going to end up with. So here's my x, here is my y equals f of x minus 2 minus 1. Okay? And I'm going to go really slow here, okay? So I want to point something out. We're going to do piece at a time. If there is a -2 inside, look what we're going to do. We're going to go to the right 2 spaces. So if we're going to the right, that really means I'm going to add. So I'm going to take my x numbers right here, y'all, and I'm going to add 2 to each of them. So -2 plus 2 would be 0. 2 plus 0 would be 2. 2 plus 2 would be 4. Right? Good. And then over here, if you look at the, see how we have that -1 on the outside? Mm-hmm. -1 on the outside means we're going to go down 1 spot. Okay, so instead of me adding like we did earlier, now I'm going to subtract from each of those. So 2 minus 1, 1, right? Guys, real slow. Minus 2 minus 1. Remember what that means. I owe you $2. I'll borrow another one.
Negative 3.
Now I owe you 3. Right? Good. Excellent. Negative 3. And 2
1.
minus 1 comes back to 1. Perfect. And then here, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and plot those points. So I'm going to do it in red. So 0 and 1 is right up here. 2 and negative 3 would be down there. And 4 and 1 would be right here. There's my graph. So we moved it to the right 2 spaces and down 1. Right? And so guys, one thing that I always think helps me when I'm doing this problem, and this is just me, but when I did this last night, a lot of people felt the same way. If I know what my original table of values look like, it's so easy for me to come up with this one. And so I'm just going to use the original table that I have to now come up with my new one, right? So look, let's try to do the same thing that we did before. Okay, so guys, I'm just going to recopy this down so I don't have too much of a mess. But I'm just going to write this again. Y equals f of x. And we had negative 2, 0, and 2. And we had negative 2 and positive 2. Okay. So just like we did before, I'm going to make a new table for this one. Okay. Notice where the negative is. The negative is on the outside. So what that means I'm going to do, those are going to be the numbers that are going to change. The ones on the top are going to stay exactly the same. Since the only difference between this part here and this part here is we have that negative, we're just going to change the signs of what we have here. So now that's going to become a negative 2, a positive 2, and another negative 2. And now what I'm going to do, y'all, I'm just going to plot those points. So negative 2 and negative 2 is down there. 0 and positive 2 is up here. And 2 and negative 2 is down there. There's my graph. I want to point something out, y'all. If you look at, say, this picture right here and this picture right here, really what kind of happened, and I'm going to zoom in just to conceal it better. If you can pretend like I'm putting 2 pins right here, and then I'm going to flip this graph. So that piece goes that way, and this piece comes back up. Like if I could turn my computer monitor upside down, then what we would get would be that graph right there. And that's what we call it flipping across the x-axis, because it's kind of like we put two little clavos or tornillos, 2 little nails or screws right there, and then just turn it upside down. Okay. All right. So look, we'll do the same kind of thing here, y'all. And again, just to make sure that we're okay with these, and I'll tell you what, since we did this problem here, let me skip over this one because it's real similar. But what I want to do is I actually want to pull up a couple of problems that you guys have in your homework, because this is what I did last night. And that group seemed to be pretty happy with me going over some of the problems like directly from your homework and trying to make sure that what we're doing, what we did, what we did right here, like with the lesson, really made sense in terms of being able to do this for the problems that you have in your homework. Okay, so look, I'm going to copy and paste. So I'm going to pull up a problem from our homework. So copy this. Okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to put it over here, kind of next to it. Okay, so guys, this is a problem I took directly from the homework. And I want you to notice what it says. It says, suppose the point 15 and 11 is on the graph y equals f of x. So the directions, there's 2 parts. It says, find the point that's on the graph of the function y equals f of 3x. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this. Y equals f of 3x. And I'm going to scroll back over here to my formula sheet, right? And I want you to notice something, y'all. That 3x it's either going to be one of these or it's going to be one of these, right? And so I got to figure out which one does it look like. And I say, well, look, the 3 is on the inside. So it's more like this part, okay? So before, remember what we said when we had y equals f of x? My points were like this, x and y. So now, when I have this part, the way my points are going to look, it's going to be x divided by the number c. C in our case here, y'all, is 3. And then my y is going to be the same. Okay, so I'm just kind of using what I have here to answer my problem. So look, I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to look at the problem that we had. Here's my problem. Remember we said the points are in the form x and y. Look at the point that they gave us. They told us that the point that we had was 15 and 11. So now we're going to take 15, but we have to divide it by 3, and then that number stays as 11. So then this point is going to be the point 511. So for the first part, for my answer for part A would be 5 and 11, right? Now, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do part B. Look at part B. I'm going to just scroll over to the side a little bit. Part B says, look, this is what we have now. We have y equals f of 1/3 x. So what I'm going to do is before, I'm going to have to take x and I'm going to have to divide it by 1/3, and my y number is going to stay the same. Okay. So I don't want you to get freaked out with this part right here, y'all. Remember what my original x number was? It was a 15. And what am I doing? I'm dividing it by 1/3. Well, let's think of that 15 as 15 over 1. So I can say, look, this is 15 over 1 times the reciprocal of 3, or 1 over 3, 3 over 1. The y number stays the same, so that's still an 11. And then 15 times 3, that's just 45. So my point for part B would be 45 and 11. Okay. Now, I don't want y'all to think that I'm making up stories here and not telling you the truth. So look, I'm going to share my screen with you guys one more time, and I'm going to share the actual homework problem. Okay. So here we go, right? And we said our answer for the first part should have been 5 and 11. So there's 5 and 11. I'm going to go chickadee check. Whew, I was a little nervous there, y'all. I didn't know it was going to work. No, I'm just kidding. I knew it was going to work. All right, let's try the next one. We said the next one, 5 and 11. And I'm going to check that one. We got it done. Okay. So this problem here was just asking me for one specific point. So I could do it for one specific point. I can do it for a ton of them. Okay, look, I'm going to do the same thing for this next problem here. I'm going to copy and paste it. Because again, I want to make sure that you guys feel okay about these problems here. All right, so let me copy this. Let me paste it to my notes. Okay, and let me share that with you guys so you can see exactly what I'm looking at. So let me stop this one, and let me share my notes. Here we go. Okay. So let's make sure this is, yeah, it's popping up. Okay. Two functions f and g are related by the given equation. Use a numerical representation of f to make a numerical representation of g. Okay, so guys, first thing I want to do, I'm going to look at this piece right here. That's my table for y and f of x, right? And now they're asking me to do one for g of x. So remember, just like I did before, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and write out my whole new table. I'm not going to worry about what they're giving me here. I'm going to make my own, just like we did earlier. Okay. All right. First thing I want you all to notice, look what we have on the outside. We got a +7. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to say, okay, hold on. Where's my notes? Here we go. Okay, we got a +7 on the outside. That means we're going to go up 7 spots, right? So what that means I can do for my problem is my x numbers aren't going to change. That's going to stay 1, 2, 3, 4. Apparently we don't need this business. Okay. Now, I'm going to add 7 to each of these numbers here to make my table. So negative 5 and 7 is 2. 3 plus 7 is 10. Negative 3 plus 7 is 4. And 2 plus 7 is 9. Okay, so all I'm really doing here, y'all, we just added 7 to each of those numbers right there. And so I'm going to put a 2, I'm going to put a 10, I'm going to put a 4, and I'm going to put a 9. And just to show you again that I'm doing this like the way I'm supposed to, I'm going to show you on my lab so you guys can see. And let's see. So we had a 2, we had a 10, we had a 4, and we had a 9, right? I'm going to go check my answer, and we got it. Okay. All right. So look, I'm gonna kind of skip over this one. I want to find one that's a little bit more. Here we go. I want to find this one. It's a little bit more complex. And then again, we'll check our answer in a second and see what we come up with. Okay. So let's do this one more time. There we go. And let me again stop sharing this. Come back to the notes. And make sure you guys can see that. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So first thing, y'all, here's my table for F, right? X and F. Okay. Now we're going to make a table for G. I know they're giving me a table there, but just like we've done before, I'm going to make my own. I'm not worried about what they're giving me. I'm going to make my own table, just like I've been doing before. So we're going to say G of X is F of X plus 1 minus 3. Okay. So first thing I want you all to notice here, we have two parts. We have this part here. We got that part there. Just like we would do, like if we were in Math 100 or something like that, or you know, we would talk about order of operations. We got to do what's on the inside of the parentheses first. This is the piece we're going to deal with first. So the one thing I want to remind you all, again, it's on the formula sheet, but if there's a plus 1 here, we're actually moving to the left 1 space. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to subtract 1 from each of those numbers because I'm actually moving to the left. Okay, so 1 minus 1 is 0, 2 minus 1 is 1, 3 minus 1 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3, 5 minus 1 is 4, and I got to do one more. Let's see, 6 minus 1 is 5. Okay, so we got that part. Now, second part we got to deal with is that minus 3 over here. This minus 3. So this minus 3 means we're going to go down 3 spaces. So what I'm going to do from here, y'all, is I'm going to subtract 3 from each of those numbers. Okay. So let's see. 1 minus 3, negative 2. 3 minus 3 is 0. 5 minus 3 is 2. 6 minus 3 is 3. 7 minus 3 is 4. And 9 minus 3 is 6. Okay. So I want you to notice we made our own table right here. Now, when I look at my table here and I look at their table here, they almost look the same. The only piece, they don't have that part. But I do know that when my x is 1, my y number is 0. When my x is 2, y is also 2. When my x is 3, y is also 3. When my x is 4, y is also 4. And when my x is 5, y is 6. So that's what I'm going to enter in because it's not even asking me what happens when x equals 0. So I'm going to just disregard it. I don't need to worry about it. I just need to worry about the ones that I'm plugging in. So again, I want you to notice 0, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Those are the answers that I'm going to be plugging in. 0, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So again, one more time, let me share my screen. So we said 0, 2, 3, 4, and 6. I'm going to go chickadee check. And we got it. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do one last one, guys, because we still got a little bit of time. And again, the ones that I'm really trying to do, y'all, are the ones that my class last night said that they felt like they struggled the most with, okay? And again, once I'm done with this, whatever questions you all have, we can definitely answer some of those as well, okay? But I'm hoping that as I'm going through these, I'm hoping this is helpful or you showing you like how to figure it out, okay? All right, so same kind of problem here. We're going to do this in pieces. The first thing I'm going to do, y'all, I'm going to make my own table just like we've been doing before, okay? So here's my g of x. So my g of x is f of negative x plus 1, okay? So, y'all, just like we did earlier, remember we said we got to deal with the inside of the parentheses first. That's the inside of my parentheses. And look what we have inside. We have a negative. So what that means I'm going to do, I'm going to take these x values right here. Or actually, it's the same thing as these right here. And I'm going to change their signs. Okay? So this is going to be a positive 2, a positive 1, 0 still 0, a negative 1, and a negative 2. Okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do is we have this plus 1 on the outside. So that plus 1 on the outside means I'm changing my y values by adding 1 to them. So 11 plus 1 is going to give me 12. 7 plus 1 is going to give me 8. 4 plus 1 will give me 5. 2 plus 1 will leave me 3. Negative 1 plus 1 will leave me 0. Okay? So I made my table. Now I want you to notice something. If you look at the way our table is written, and you look at the way this table is written, I have my negative 2 at the end, but they have it at the beginning. So that just tells me that if my x is negative 2, my y number is 0. When my x number is negative 1, my y number is 3. When my x number is 0, oh, that's still 5. When my x number is 1, this number is now 8. And when my x number is 2, this number is now 12. So that each of those numbers are paired up with the right ones. You know what I mean? So again, I want you to notice something. Look at the numbers I'm entering in. 0, 3, 5, 8, and 12, right? So again, let me do that one last time. So, I wasn't sharing the screen.
I was about to say.
Sorry, guys. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Let me just pull it back up. Oh, that was my bad. Okay, I'll tell you what. We're gonna do this one quick time because it doesn't take that long, and it's better to make sure that we're all good. Okay. No te mortifiques. It's all good in the hood. All right. So, oops. So let's do this. G of x equals f of negative x plus 1. Okay. So just like I said earlier, what we're going to do here, we're going to start from the inside, right? Okay, we're going to start from the inside. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking my x values and I'm changing their signs. So y'all, I'm going to come back to this part here, and I'm going to change the signs of those x values. So that's going to be a 2, a 1, a 0, a minus 1, and a minus 2. Okay? So we've already fixed this part. Now, we still have this plus 1 on the outside. So all that means is I'm going to go plus 1 here, plus 1 here, plus 1 here, here, and okay. So now that's going to give me a 12, an 8, a 5, a 3, and a 0. Okay, so we made our new table. Now, guys, I want you all to take a look at this in that my table here compared to their table here, I'm starting off with 2, 1, 0, minus 1, minus 2, but they're actually starting off the opposite way, right? So what does that mean? That means that when x is -2, my y number is 0. And when x is -1, my y number is 3. And when x is 0, my y number is 5. And when x is 1, my y number is 8. And when x is 2, my y number is 12. And so those are going to be the numbers that I'm filling in. The only thing that was different was my table was sort of written backwards. So if I'm flipping the whole thing, I got to flip those y numbers too. So now look at the numbers I'm going to enter in: 0, 3, 5, 8, and 12, right? So now let me come back and let me share my screen again. And we said, let's see, 0, oh man, I just forgot them, 0, 3, 5, 8, 12. Okay, 0, 3, 5, 8, 12. 3, 5, 8, and 12, and I'm going to go chickadee check, and I'm able to figure it out, okay? So, all right, so guys, I know this was a lot. This was definitely a whole lot, right? If we were not in the middle of this awful pandemic, you know, we'd probably see each other twice a week, and we'd have a lot of time to go through some of these things. But, you know, unfortunately, this is the situation we're in. But what I really want to hope is that what I did tonight seemed helpful, not only in going over the lecture, but being able to apply that to the actual homework problems, okay? So guys, the one thing I really, really want to emphasize is when I'm doing these problems, regardless of what it gives me, I'm always going to make my own table. I'm not going to worry about what they give me. I mean, I'm obviously going to use this, but I'm going to use that to make my own table. I'll do it on my paper, and then all I got to do is put my numbers in. Does that make any sense on how I was able to go through some of these problems here out of 2.7? Do you feel okay about any of this stuff? Any better? Yeah, good. Okay. Um, yes, Angelica, ask me.
Sorry, I pressed that by mistake. I'm
Oh,
good.
that's okay.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, good. No worries, no worries. I just wanted to make sure we're all good here.
Oh, thank you.
Guys, y'all have any questions that y'all? Yeah, Liz, I agree. We have to go super slow. I was telling my class last night that it's it's for these problems here, especially out of 2.7. I really, really, really try to take my time with them. Try to go super slow and make my own table and just like one step at a time. Because if I go too fast, I'm definitely going to make some mistakes. So no, I agree with you 100%. So y'all, one of the things that I want to mention, those of you who are here, Angelica, Liz, Stephanie, I'm glad y'all were able to join tonight. Next Wednesday, all we're going to do is review for the first test, right? So really, what I want you all to do, and I'm gonna pull that up real quick because I do want y'all to be able to see that. So let me share that with you guys so you can see this as well. Go here, and let me see. Let me click on the week 6. Okay. So next Wednesday is the 6th. Okay. So what I'm going to do next Wednesday is, and I'm going to send you guys an email tomorrow with a little bit more info about test 1 and all that kind of stuff. But next Wednesday, we're going to do a review, right? And we'll be here from 5:30 to 6:30 to try to answer as many questions as we can. If we go a little bit past 6:30, that's fine. Once we're done with the review, I'm going to set up the test for you guys. The test, y'all, so I'll open it up that night. You can take it Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, daytime, whatever, right? This is the only thing. There's a 4-hour time limit. So all that means is that once you start it, the timer starts. And you got 4 hours to get it done, okay? So guys, the one thing I want to mention is that, here we go. The review has 49 questions, right? So next Wednesday, we're gonna talk about those 49 questions. What I want us to do next Wednesday, we're gonna log in here, those of you who are able to join, and you're gonna say, sir, how do I do number 7, or how do I do number 15, or whatever. We'll do as much of that as we can. Your test, y'all, has 20 questions that come directly from the review. Okay, they come directly from the review. The problem is exactly the same. The only thing that changes are the numbers, but the problem itself is in essence the same. Okay, so there's not going to be, you shouldn't see anything on the test that we never even talked about before. It's all going to be, guys, you can use your notes, you can use the formula sheet, right? The one thing I was telling my class last night about using your notes in your formula sheet, and not that everybody does this, but some people unfortunately fall in this habit. They say, you know what, I don't really need to study that much because I can use my notes. And then they get to question number one and they're like, I don't know how to do this. And they spend like 20 minutes in their notes trying to find something similar. And then they find it and they get question number one. Okay, then they go to question number two, but you just spent 20 minutes right on one question. There's 20 questions. You got 4 hours. So the idea is use your formula sheet, use your notes, but you should not, you really shouldn't need your formula sheet or notes for every single question, because if you're hunting around looking to find that, it's just going to take you a really long time to get it done. Okay, and 4 hours is a long time, but I don't want you hunting for something in every single problem. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if we were in an English class and I'm going to write an essay and I'm like, how do you spell the word the? And how do you spell the word cat? And how do you spell the word of and dog? And it would just take me forever to write an essay, right? Same kind of thing applies here. Um, so anyway, I'm going to send you guys some more info just about like when the test will start and when it's going to finish and all that kind of good stuff next week. I'm sorry, tomorrow. And again, like I said, next Wednesday, all we'll do is just review for the test. Okay. So, does that sound good? Do you guys feel like you're in a little bit better of a situation than what we were maybe before an hour ago? Like you know more that you know like exactly how the test is going to work and all that kind of good stuff. Are we good? Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Awesome. All right. Well, guys, if y'all don't have any questions for me, we can log off. If you do have questions, please let me know. We can do something right now. If you don't have a question, then we're free to go. All righty. So guys, let me go ahead and stop recording. I will send out a